When Kira Vance rescued a tiny lion cub with strange golden markings around its eyes, she thought she was just saving one small life. She had no idea that 23 wild lions were about to surround her camp and bow down to her like she was their queen. But this wasn't just any ordinary cub, and these weren't just any ordinary lions. Deep in the African wilderness, Kira discovered something that would change everything. She thought she knew about magic, healing, and the unbreakable bond between sisters, even when one sister lives in this world and the other exists beyond it. What she found hidden in that forest would transform her from a broken, guilt-ridden woman, running from her past, into something far more powerful than she ever imagined possible. But here are the questions that will keep you reading until the very last word. What ancient secret was the lion cub really carrying that made an entire pride treat Kira like royalty? And what impossible choice would she have to make that would decide not just her own fate, but the survival of magic itself in the modern world? Kira Vance stepped out of her dusty Jeep and slammed the door harder than she meant to. The sound echoed across the empty African savanna like a gunshot. She didn't care. Nothing mattered anymore. 6 months ago, she had been planning her wedding. 6 months ago, her little sister Maya was still alive, still laughing, still carrying that stupid stuffed lion everywhere she went. 6 months ago, Kira thought she knew what her life would look like. Then came the accident. The rain, the red light, the truck that ran the stop sign, Maya's scream that ended too quickly. Kira squeezed her eyes shut, but the memories always found her anyway. That's why she had come to Kenya, to run away from everything that reminded her of that terrible night, to disappear where nobody knew her story. The African sun burned hot on her shoulders as she walked away from her small camp. She had been here for 2 weeks, hiding in the middle of nowhere. Her parents called every day, begging her to come home. Her friends sent worried texts, but Kira couldn't face any of them. Not when Maya's death was her fault. She should have been more careful. She should have seen that truck coming. She should have protected her baby sister. The tall grass whispered around her legs as she walked deeper into the wilderness. She wasn't supposed to wander alone out here. The local guides had warned her about lions and elephants and all sorts of dangerous animals. But Kira wasn't afraid. The worst thing that could happen to her already had. That's when she heard it. A tiny cry, weak and desperate, coming from somewhere up ahead. Kira stopped walking. The sound came again. Definitely an animal, and definitely in trouble. She followed the cries to a fallen tree near a dried-up stream. The massive trunk had crashed down recently, probably during the last storm, and trapped underneath its heavy branches was the tiniest lion cub Kira had ever seen. "Oh no," she whispered, dropping to her knees beside the trapped animal. The cub was golden brown with big amber eyes that looked almost human. Its fur was matted, with dirt and blood from where the branches had pinned it down. One tiny paw stuck out from under the wood, and Kira could see it was hurt. But what made her heart stop were the markings around the cub's eyes. They looked like golden teardrops, shimmering in the sunlight. She had never seen anything like them. "Hey there, little one," Kira said softly. "You're stuck, aren't you?" The cub looked at her with those incredible eyes and made a sound that wasn't quite a roar and wasn't quite a meow. It sounded almost like it was trying to talk to her. For some reason, The sound reminded Kira of Maya. Her sister used to make silly noises when she was trying to get attention. The memory should have hurt, but instead, it made Kira feel warm inside. "I'm going to help you," she promised. The branches were heavier than they looked, but Kira was strong from months of barely eating and constant worry. She lifted them one by one, being careful not to hurt the cub more. "Almost there," she said. "Just hold on." When the last branch came free, the cub didn't run away like Kira expected. Instead, it just lay there, too weak to move. Its injured paw was swollen, and its breathing was shallow. Without thinking, Kira scooped the tiny animal into her arms. It was so small and light, just like Maya's stuffed lion that she used to sleep with every night. "I'll call you Sunny," Kira said, remembering that Sunny had been Maya's favorite word. She used to say it whenever she was happy about something. "Maya would have loved you." The cub looked up at her with those strange, beautiful eyes and made a purring sound. For the first time in months, Kira felt something other than sadness. She carried Sunny back to her camp as the sun began to set. The little animal didn't struggle or try to escape. It just curled up against her chest like it belonged there. At her tent, Kira gave Sunny water from her bottle and small pieces of crackers from her supplies. The cub ate hungrily, and its breathing got stronger. "Where's your family?" Kira asked, stroking the soft fur. "Where's your mom?" But even as she asked, she realized she didn't want to know the answer. She didn't want to give Sunny back. For the first time since the accident, she felt needed, useful, like maybe she could save something instead of destroying it. As darkness fell over the savannah, Kira crawled into her sleeping bag with Sunny curled up beside her. The cub's warm body pressed against her side, and its gentle purring filled the quiet. Night. That night, Kira slept without nightmares for the first time in 6 months. She didn't know that in the darkness outside her tent, 23 pairs of glowing eyes watched them both. She didn't know that lions had been searching these lands for over 100 years, waiting for someone special enough to find what had been lost. And she definitely didn't know that saving one small cub would change not just her life, but her very soul. But in her dreams, she heard Maya's voice, clear and happy. "You did good, Kira. You saved something beautiful." The eyes in the darkness moved closer. Kira woke up to the strangest sound she had ever heard. It wasn't quite singing, and it wasn't quite humming. It was deep and low, and seemed to come from all around her tent at once. She sat up in her sleeping bag, heart pounding. Sunny was gone. "Sunny," she whispered, looking around the small tent. "Where are you?" The humming sound grew louder. It was beautiful and scary at the same time, like a song from a dream she couldn't quite remember. Kira unzipped her tent flap and peeked outside. What she saw made her forget how to breathe. Lions everywhere. They sat in a perfect circle around her camp. Big lions, small lions, male lions with thick manes, female lions with sleek bodies. Kira counted them quickly. 23 total. They all faced her tent, perfectly still like golden statues in the moonlight. And in the center of the circle, rolling around in the dirt like he owned the world, was Sunny. "This is impossible," Kira breathed. She had seen nature shows. She knew how lions were supposed to act. They hunted in groups. They fought over food. They didn't sit quietly in circles like they were waiting for something. But these lions weren't acting like wild animals. They were acting like they were guarding something precious. Slowly, carefully, Kira crawled out of her tent. Every lion head turned to watch her, but none of them moved. Their eyes reflected the moonlight like tiny golden mirrors. The biggest lion, a male with a mane so dark it looked black, stood up. Kira's legs almost gave out. He was huge, bigger than her jeep, with muscles that rippled under his golden fur. She should run. Every smart part of her brain screamed at her to get back in the tent and radio for help. But something in the lion's eyes stopped her. He looked intelligent. Not just smart, like a dog or a horse, but really, truly intelligent. Like he was thinking complex thoughts and trying to tell her something important. The giant lion walked toward Sunny, who was still playing happily in the dirt. Instead of being scary, the big cat gently nuzzled the cub with his massive head. Then he looked back at Kira and did something that made her knees shake. He bowed. The great lion lowered his enormous head all the way to the ground, like he was showing respect to a queen. One by one, every other lion in the circle did the same thing. 23 lions bowing to her. Kira rubbed her eyes hard. She had to be dreaming. This couldn't be real. But when she looked again, they were all still there, still bowing. "What do you want from me?" she whispered. The lions raised their heads. The big male made a sound that was too soft to be a roar. It sounded almost like he was trying to answer her question. That's when she heard the truck. Dr. James Okoye's research vehicle came racing across the savannah, dust flying everywhere. He slammed on the brakes and jumped out, leaving his door wide open. "Miss," he shouted, "get in my truck right now. Don't make any sudden moves." Dr. Okoye was a tall man with kind eyes and graying hair. He had been studying animals in Kenya for 30 years. Kira had met him at the local village when she first arrived. "They're not going to hurt me," she called back. "That's not natural behavior," Dr. Okoye said, pulling out his binoculars. "Lions don't act like this. Something is very, very wrong here." But as Kira watched Sunny tumble around between the massive paws of the adult lions, she didn't feel afraid. She felt chosen. "There's something special about this cub," she told Dr. Okoye. He studied the scene through his binoculars, shaking his head in amazement. "Those markings around its eyes, I've seen them before. In very old books. Very old stories." "What kind of stories?" "The Maasai people have legends," he said slowly. "About lions that aren't quite lions. About spirits that take animal form. To protect sacred places." Kira looked at Sunny, who had stopped playing and was staring right at her with those incredible amber eyes. For just a moment, she could have sworn she saw something else looking back at her. Something ancient and wise and utterly magical. "That's just folklore," she said, but her voice didn't sound convinced. "Is it?" Dr. Okoye asked. "Then explain to me why 23 wild lions are sitting around your camp like trained dogs." Sadris. If they understood his words, several of the lions made soft, chuffing sounds. It almost sounded like they were laughing. The sun began to rise, painting the sky pink and gold. The lions didn't leave. Instead, they spread out around Kira's camp like guardians. Some went to hunt. Others found shady spots to rest. But they all stayed close. Throughout the day, the strangest things happened. When lions returned from hunting, they shared their food, not just with each other, but by leaving fresh meat near Kira's tent. When she needed water, 2 lionesses led her to a hidden spring she never would have found alone. It was like they were taking care of her. "This is the most incredible animal behavior I've ever documented," Dr. Okoye said, setting up his camera equipment. "They're treating you like part of their pride." "But why?" Kira asked, watching Sunny sleep peacefully against the side of a massive lioness. "I don't know," Dr. Okoye admitted, "but I think that little cub is the key to everything." As evening approached, the lions gathered in their circle again. This time, they began to sing, that same beautiful, haunting sound Kira had heard the night before. Sunny woke up and ran to Kira, climbing into her lap like a house cat. As the cub purred against her chest, Kira felt something she hadn't felt since Maya died. She felt like she belonged somewhere. The lion song grew louder, echoing across the savannah. In the distance, other animals stopped. What they were doing, to listen. Elephants raised their trunks. Zebras turned their heads. Even the birds went quiet. "What are they singing about?" Kira asked. Dr. Okoye lowered his camera. "I think," he said softly, "they're singing about you." That night, as Kira drifted off to sleep with Sunny curled beside her and 23 lions keeping watch, she dreamed of a woman with golden skin and tear-shaped markings around her eyes. The woman was calling her name across the endless grassland. And in the dream, Kira was running toward her, not away. She woke up with tears on her cheeks and the woman's voice still echoing in her mind. The dream had felt more real than real, like a memory of something that hadn't happened yet. The lions were already awake, sitting in their patient circle as the sun painted the sky orange and pink. Sunny jumped up from beside her and ran to the biggest male lion, who nuzzled the cub like a gentle giant. That's when Kira heard footsteps. An old man walked slowly across the grassland toward her camp. He was tall and thin, with dark skin weathered by years in the African sun. He wore traditional Maasai clothing, red cloth wrapped around his body and colorful beads around his neck. His walking stick tapped against the hard ground with each step. The lions watched him approach, but they didn't seem worried. If anything, they looked respectful. "Elder Django," Dr. Okoye said, getting up quickly from his camping chair. "I didn't expect to see you here." The old man nodded at Dr. Okoye, then looked straight at Kira. His eyes were the color of dark honey, wise and kind. When he saw Sunny playing between the lion's paws, he stopped, walking. For a long moment, he just stared at the little cub. Then he did something that surprised everyone. He smiled. "So," he said in perfect English, "Ashanti has finally returned." "Ashanti?" Kira asked, standing up. "Who's Ashanti?" Elder Django walked closer to Sunny. The cub looked up at him and made a soft purring sound. The old man knelt down and gently touched the golden markings around Sunny's eyes. "This cub," he said quietly, "carries the spirit of my great-grandmother." Kira blinked hard. "Your great-grandmother?" "Her name was Ashanti," Elder Django explained, sitting cross-legged on the ground. The lions seemed to approve. Several of them moved closer to listen. "She was the greatest healer our tribe ever knew. She could speak with animals. She could cure any sickness. She could feel the pain of every living creature." Dr. Okoye pulled out his notebook. "This sounds like an interesting folk tale, but—" "It is not a folk tale," Elder Django said firmly. "It is history." He pointed to Sunny's unique markings. Long ago, when I was just a boy, terrible drought came to our land. The rains stopped falling. The rivers dried up. Animals died. People died. My great-grandmother watched her people suffer, and her heart broke. Kira felt something twist in her chest. She knew what it felt like to watch someone you loved suffer. Ashanti tried everything, Elder Django continued. Every medicine, every prayer, every healing ritual she knew. But the drought was too strong. The land was dying, and she could not save it. What did she do? Kira asked, though part of her already knew the answer would be something impossible. She made a choice no human should ever have to make, Elder Django said. She walked to the sacred pool in the heart of the forest. She asked the lion spirits to let her join them. She gave up her human form so she could protect the land forever. Dr. Okoye looked up from his notes. That's a beautiful story, but people can't actually turn into animals. Elder Django smiled sadly. The spirits agreed to her request, but with one condition. She could only return to human form when someone with a pure heart was ready to carry on her healing work. He looked directly at Kira, someone who understood both great loss and great love. Kira's mouth went dry. That's just a coincidence. Is it? Elder Django asked. Then tell me why 23 lions guard you like their queen. Tell me why this cub chose you to rescue her. Tell me why you can already feel their emotions. I can't feel their emotions, Kira said automatically. Then she stopped. Because actually, she could. She could sense that the big male lion was worried about something. She could feel that one of the female lions was sad. She could tell that Sunny was happy and safe and somehow grateful. Oh, she whispered. Elder Django nodded. The gift is awakening in you, just as it awakened in Ashanti over a century ago. But I'm not a healer, Kira protested. I couldn't even save my own sister. The words came out before she could stop them. Elder Django's expression softened. What happened to your sister was not yours to heal, he said gently. Some things happen because it is their time to happen. But other things, like finding this cub, like earning the trust of this pride, those happen because you have a healer's heart. Dr. Okoye was scribbling furiously in his notebook. Even if I believed this story, how would you explain the lion's behavior scientifically? Science does not explain everything, my friend, Elder Django said. Some truths can only be felt with the heart. As if to prove his point, Sunny trotted over to Kira and climbed into her lap. The moment the cub's warm body touched hers, Kira felt a jolt of something, like electricity, but warmer, like sunlight flowing through her veins. And suddenly, she could feel what Sunny was feeling. Joy. Deep, pure joy at being held by someone who truly cared. But underneath that joy was something else, an ancient sadness, like the memory of being lost for a very long time. She's been waiting, Kira said without thinking. She's been waiting for someone to find her. Elder Django's eyes widened. You can feel her spirit. I can feel something. Kira looked down at Sunny, who was staring up at her with those incredible amber eyes. It's like she's trying to tell me something important. She is, Elder Django said. She is trying to tell you that your journey is just beginning. That afternoon, something amazing happened. The big male lion approached Kira's tent, limping slightly. She could sense his pain immediately. His left front paw was swollen and hot to the touch. Without thinking, Kira knelt down beside him. The massive lion lay down and held out his injured paw like a dog asking for help. "I don't know what to do," Kira said. But her hands seemed to know. She placed them gently on the lion's paw and closed her eyes. Warmth flowed from her fingers into his injury. She could feel the swelling going down, the pain fading away. When she opened her eyes, the lion's paw looked completely normal. Dr. Okoye dropped his camera. "How did you do that?" "I don't know," Kira whispered, staring at her own hands. Elder Jengo smiled. "Ashanti's gift is becoming yours." As the sun set, the lions began their evening song. But this time, Kira understood what they were singing about. They were singing about hope, about healing, about someone who had finally come home. And in her heart, she heard another voice, Maya's voice, saying, "This is why you survived the accident, Kira. This is why you're here." That night, as she fell asleep with Sunny purring beside her, Kira dreamed again of the woman with golden markings around her eyes. But this time, the woman wasn't calling to her across a distant field. This time, she was standing right beside her, smiling, with her hand outstretched. Kira woke up with the dream woman's touch still tingling on her skin. The feeling was so real that she looked around her tent, half expecting to see someone there. But she was alone, except for Sunny, who was watching her with those knowing amber eyes. "Did you feel that too?" Kira whispered to the cub. Sunny made a soft sound that might have been yes. For the next 3 days, life fell into the most magical routine Kira had ever experienced. Each morning, she woke up surrounded by her lion family. She had names for all of them now. Temba was the big male with the dark mane who had first bowed to her. He liked having his ears scratched and always brought her the best pieces of meat from the hunt. Zara was a lioness who had lost her own cub months ago. She stayed close to Sunny like a protective aunt, grooming the little one's fur and teaching him how to pounce properly. Jensi was a young male whose mane was just starting to grow. He was playful and curious, always getting into trouble by chasing butterflies or trying to catch birds. Kessie was an old lioness with gray around her muzzle. She was the wisest of the pride, and when the others had disagreements, they came to her to settle things peacefully. And there were 19 others, each with their own personality, their own quirks, their own special place in Kira's growing heart. "You've learned all their names?" Dr. Okoye asked on the third morning, amazed. He had been documenting everything with his cameras and notebooks. "They told me," Kira said simply. "Lions don't tell people their names. These lions do." And it was true. When Kira touched each lion, their name just appeared in her mind, like someone whispering it directly into her thoughts. Along with the names came their feelings, their memories, their hopes. Temba worried about keeping the pride safe. Zara missed her lost baby every day. Jensi dreamed of being as strong as Temba someday. Casey remembered when she was young and fast, before her joints started aching. But the most amazing thing was that Kira could help them. When she placed her hands on Casey's sore joints, the old lioness could run and play like a youngster again. When she comforted Zara, the grieving mother's sadness became lighter. When she encouraged Jensi, the young male's confidence grew stronger. "You're healing them," Dr. Okoye said, his voice full of wonder. "Not just their bodies, but their hearts." "They're healing me too," Kira replied. And it was true. For months after Maya's death, Kira had felt empty inside, like someone had scooped out everything good and left only pain. But now, surrounded by the love of the pride, that emptiness was filling up again. She still missed Maya terribly. She still felt sad about the accident, but the crushing guilt that had followed her to Africa was getting lighter every day. Maya would have loved this, she told Sunny as they watched the sunset together. The cub was curled in her lap, while the pride rested around them in the warm evening air. For the first time since saying those words, Kira didn't cry. Instead, she smiled. That night, visitors came to their camp. Word had spread through the local villages about the woman who lived with lions. Tourists parked their cars far away and stared through binoculars. Scientists came with equipment to study the unusual animal behavior. But the lions only trusted Kira. When strangers got too close, the pride would stand up and form a protective wall around her. Not threatening, but unmistakably clear. "This is our family. Stay back. They're protecting you like their own cub," Elder Jengo observed. He had been visiting daily, bringing news from the village and ancient stories about Ashanti. "I feel like they're family," Kira said. "I feel more at home here than I ever did back in Oregon." "That is because this is where you belong," Elder Jengo said. "Ashanti's spirit has been waiting over 100 years for someone like you." "Someone like me?" "Someone who understands loss but chooses love anyway. Someone who has been broken but uses that experience to heal others." That evening, something incredible happened. Kira was sitting by her campfire when she heard Maya's voice again. Not in a dream this time, but as clear as if her sister was sitting right beside her. "I'm okay, Kira," Maya's voice said. "The accident wasn't your fault. You need to forgive yourself." Kira looked around, confused. The voice had definitely come from somewhere outside her own mind. Then she realized it had come from Sunny. The cub was staring at her with eyes that suddenly looked exactly like Maya's used to look. Bright and kind and full of mischief. "Maya," Kira whispered. Sunny patted over and nuzzled her hand. In that touch, Kira felt something she hadn't felt in months. Her sister's love, warm and real and completely forgiving. "The accident wasn't your fault," the feeling seemed to say. "I never blamed you. I need you to stop blaming yourself." Tears ran down Kira's face, but they weren't sad tears anymore. They were tears of relief, of healing, of a weight finally lifting from her heart. Dr. Okoye noticed the change immediately when he saw her the next morning. "You look different," he said. "Lighter somehow." "I am lighter," Kira said, and meant it completely. The guilt she had carried for so long was finally gone. Maya was at peace, and now Kira could be too. That day, she worked with the lions like never before. She helped Jensi overcome his fear of water by gently encouraging him to wade into the stream. She eased the pain of a lioness who had old scars from a fight with a buffalo. She even helped 2 lions who had been arguing over territory learn to share peacefully. "This is incredible," Dr. Okoye said, filming everything. "You're not just healing individual animals, You're healing the entire pride's relationships with each other. When you heal yourself, Elder Django said wisely, you become able to heal the world around you. As the sun set on Kira's most perfect day yet, she sat surrounded by 23 lions who loved her like family, holding a cub who carried the spirit of an ancient healer, in a place where her broken heart had finally learned to beat properly again. She was completely, utterly happy. But that night, her dreams turned dark. She saw men with guns moving through the grass toward their camp. She saw Sunny changing into something that wasn't quite lion and wasn't quite human. She saw danger coming for her newfound family, and she saw herself having to make a choice that would change everything forever. Kira woke up, gasping, her heart beating like thunder. The dream had felt so real she could still smell the gun smoke and hear the sound of boots crushing grass. Dawn was just breaking over the savannah. The lions were restless, pacing around the camp instead of lying peacefully like they usually did. Temba kept looking toward the forest and making low, worried sounds. "What's wrong, boy?" Kira asked, scratching behind his ears. But she already knew. Something was coming, something dangerous. Sunny jumped up from beside her and ran to Temba. The tiny cub stood on his back legs and put his paws on the big lion's chest, like he was trying to tell him something important. That's when Kira noticed something strange. Sunny's golden markings were glowing. Not brightly, but definitely glowing with a soft light that pulsed like a heartbeat. In the early morning darkness, the teardrop shapes around his eyes looked like tiny golden stars. "Dr. Okoye," she called, "you need to see this." The scientist hurried over from his tent, camera already in hand. When he saw Sunny's glowing markings, he nearly dropped his equipment. "That's impossible," he breathed. "Animals don't just glow." "These animals do lots of impossible things," Kira reminded him. Elder Django appeared out of the morning mist like he had been waiting for this moment. His face was serious, worried. "The time has come," he said simply. "What time?" Kira asked, though part of her already knew she didn't want to hear the answer. "Ashanti is remembering who she truly is," Elder Django explained, pointing to Sunny's glowing markings. "The spirit is awakening fully, but that means she is also in great danger." "Danger from what?" Elder Django's weathered face looked older than ever. "There are men who hunt magical creatures. They sell them to collectors who keep them in cages, or to people who believe that magical animals can make them powerful. They have been searching for the lion spirit for many years." As if his words had summoned them, Kira heard the distant sound of engines, trucks moving. Fast across the savannah, the entire pride stood up at once, every lion facing the same direction. Their lips pulled back from their teeth, but they weren't snarling. They were afraid. "We have to hide," Dr. Okoye said, starting to pack his equipment. But Temba had a different idea. The great lion walked to Kira and gently took her shirt in his teeth. He tugged her toward the forest, looking back at her with urgent eyes. "He wants us to follow him," Kira said. "It's not safe to go deeper into the wilderness," Dr. Okoye protested. "It's not safe to stay here either," Elder Django said. "The lions know where to go. Trust them." Kira scooped Sunny into her arms. The cub's markings were glowing brighter now, warm against her chest. With the entire pride surrounding them like bodyguards, they followed Temba into the thick forest. They walked for what felt like hours, deeper and deeper into parts of the wilderness Kira had never seen. The trees grew taller and older, their branches forming a green roof that blocked out most of the sky. Finally, they reached a clearing that took Kira's breath away. Ancient stone pillars formed a perfect circle, each one covered with symbols that looked older than anything she had ever seen. The stones hummed with power, like they were alive. But the most amazing thing was in the center of the circle, a pool of water that glowed with golden light. "The heart of Ashanti," Elder Django whispered, "where the transformation happened over a century ago." The water wasn't just golden, it was the exact same color as Sunny's markings. It pulsed with the same gentle rhythm, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. As they approached the sacred pool, Sunny began to glow even brighter. The cub squirmed in Kira's arms, wanting to get down. "What's happening to him?" Kira asked. "She is remembering," Elder Django said. "This is where Ashanti gave up her human form. The pool holds the memory of who she was and who she can become again." The lions formed their protective circle around the ancient stones, but this time they were all facing outward, watching for danger while their queen approached her destiny. Dr. Okoye started to set up his camera, but the equipment wouldn't work. "The batteries are dead," he said, confused, "but I just charged them this morning." "Some magic is too sacred to capture," Elder Django explained. Sunny jumped down from Kira's arms and walked slowly toward the glowing pool. With each step, the EEB cub's markings grew brighter and brighter. When Sunny reached the edge of the water, something incredible happened. The pool began to show pictures, like a movie playing on its golden surface. Kira saw a young African woman with kind eyes and the same teardrop markings around them. She saw the woman healing sick animals, comforting crying children, bringing rain to drought-stricken fields. "Ashanti," Elder Django said softly. The vision changed. Kira saw the great drought, the dying animals, the desperate choice. She watched as the young healer walked into this same pool and asked the spirits to let her become a lion forever, so she could protect the land she loved. "But why show me this?" Kira asked. "Because," said a voice that didn't come from Elder Django or Dr. Okoye, "you are part of the story too." Kira spun around. Standing at the edge of the clearing was the woman from her dreams. Golden skin, amber eyes, and the familiar teardrop markings that glowed with soft light. But she wasn't solid. Kira could see through her, like she was made of mist and starlight. "Ashanti," Kira breathed. The spirit woman smiled. "Hello, Kira. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for bringing me home. I don't understand. If you're here, then who is—" Kira looked down at Sunny, who was sitting perfectly still at the pool's edge. "I am both," Ashanti said. "Spirit and cub, memory and flesh, past and present. But the time has come to choose which I will remain." The sound of engines grew louder. Shouts echoed through the forest. The hunters were getting closer. "The men who seek to capture magical creatures," Ashanti continued. "They know about this place. They know about me. If I remain as a cub, they will take me. They will cage me and use my spirit for evil purposes." "Then change back," Kira said desperately. "Become human again. You'll be safe." Ashanti's expression grew sad. "I can only take human form permanently if someone else accepts the responsibility of being a guardian. Someone pure of heart." someone who understands both loss and healing. She held out her hand to Kira, exactly like in the dreams. Someone like you. Kira stared at the outstretched hand. She understood now what choice she had to make. She could touch Ashanti's hand and become a guardian like her, gaining incredible powers, but giving up her normal human life forever. Or she could refuse and watch as the hunters captured Sunny and destroyed something ancient and beautiful. The louder sound of breaking branches told her they were almost out of time. Kira stared at Ashanti's outstretched hand. Her mind raced with everything this choice would mean. If she took that hand, she would never go home to Oregon. She would never see her parents again. She would never have the normal life she had once planned. Marriage, kids, a house, with a white picket fence. But if she didn't take it, Sunny would be captured. The hunters would cage something pure and magical and use its power for terrible things. What exactly would happen to me? Kira asked quickly. You would become like me, Ashanti said. Her spirit form was getting brighter as the sacred pool pulsed with power. A bridge between the human world and the animal world. You would have the power to heal any creature, to speak with all living things, to protect the sacred places of the earth. But I'd still be human? Yes and no, Ashanti admitted. You would look human, but you would be so much more. You would live longer than normal humans. You would feel the emotions of every animal around you. You would carry the responsibility of protecting magic itself. The sound of engines stopped. Car doors slammed. Men's voices shouted orders to each other. They're here, Dr. Okoye whispered, his face pale with fear. The lions tensed, ready to fight. But Kira knew that even 23 lions couldn't stop bullets. I need more time to think, she said, desperately. There is no more time, Ashanti said gently. Choose now, or lose the chance forever. Kira looked at Sunny, who was watching her with those incredible amber eyes. In them, she saw not just a cub, but a century of loneliness. 100 years of waiting for someone to understand, someone to care, someone to make the sacrifice worthwhile. She thought about Maya. What would her sister want her to do? As if summoned by her thoughts, she heard Maya's voice again. Not from Sunny this time, but from somewhere deep in her own heart. Do what makes you happy, Kira. Do what feels right. I'll always be proud of you, no matter what you choose. Kira closed her eyes and thought about the past week. She thought about waking up, surrounded by lions who loved her. She thought about healing Temba's injured paw, comforting. Zara's broken heart, watching Genzi grow stronger and braver. She thought about how empty her life had felt back home and how full it felt here. She thought about the tourists who came to stare at her from a distance, and the scientists who wanted to study her like a lab experiment. She thought about going back to a world where people would never understand what she had experienced. Then she thought about staying here forever, protecting creatures that couldn't protect themselves, healing animals that needed her, being part of something ancient and beautiful and important. The choice wasn't hard at all. I'll do it, she said, opening her eyes. Ashanti smiled, the most beautiful, radiant smile Kira had ever seen. Are you sure? The spirit asked. Once you take my hand, there is no going back. I'm sure, Kira said firmly. This is where I belong. This is what I'm meant to do. She reached out and grasped Ashanti's glowing hand. The moment their fingers touched, everything changed. Power flowed through Kira like liquid sunlight. She felt her heart expand to hold not just her own emotions, but the feelings of every creature in the forest. She could sense the lion's fierce protectiveness, the bird's joy in flight, the tree's ancient patience, even the smallest insects. Simple contentment. Her eyes began to glow with the same golden light as Ashanti's markings. She felt stronger, wiser, more connected to the world than she had ever imagined possible. "Welcome, sister," Ashanti said. "Welcome to your true life." But before Kira could respond, armed men burst into the clearing. There were 6 of them, all carrying rifles and nets. Their leader was a tall man with cold eyes and scars on his face. "There!" he shouted, pointing at Sunny. "The spirit cub! Take it alive!" The lions roared and formed a protective wall around Kira and Sunny. But the men raised their weapons. "Stand! Back!" the scarred leader yelled. "We don't want to hurt anyone, but we will if we have to." Kira felt something new awakening inside her. Not just the power to heal, but the power to protect what she loved. She stepped forward, placing herself between the hunters and Sunny. "You can't have him," she said quietly. The leader laughed. "You're just one girl. What are you going to do? Ask us nicely to leave?" Kira smiled. She closed her eyes and reached out with her new abilities, not just to the lions around her, but to every creature in the entire forest. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The ground began to shake as elephants thundered through the trees toward them. Monkeys swung from branch to branch, chattering angrily. Birds filled the sky in a dark, swirling cloud. Even insects rose from the ground in buzzing, clicking waves. The forest itself was coming to defend its guardians. The hunters looked around, in growing panic as thousands of animals surrounded the clearing. Not attacking, but making it very clear that the humans were outnumbered by creatures who would fight to protect what they loved. "This is impossible," one of the men whispered. "Magic is never impossible," Elder Jengo said, stepping out from behind one of the stone pillars. "It just waits for the right moment to reveal itself." Dr. Okoye appeared behind another pillar, holding his satellite. "Phone. I've already called the park rangers," he announced. "They'll be here in 10 minutes. The scarred leader raised his rifle toward Kira. "I don't care about magic or rangers. I came here for that spirit cub, and I'm not leaving without it." His finger moved toward the trigger. That's when Sunny made his choice. The little cub walked calmly to the edge of the sacred pool and stepped into the glowing water. Immediately, the pool blazed with light so bright that everyone had to shield their eyes. The very air seemed to sing with ancient power. When the light faded, Sunny was gone. In his place stood Ashanti, not as a spirit, but as a real, solid human woman with golden skin and eyes like amber stars. The hunters stared in shock. "You want magic?" Ashanti asked, her voice carrying the power of wind and storm. "Here I am." The scarred leader stared at her, his rifle shaking in his hands. "Victor Kruger doesn't back down from anything," he said, trying to sound brave. "Not even spirits." "Then Victor Kruger is a fool," Ashanti replied calmly. But Kira could see something in the hunter's eyes that made her stomach twist with fear. This wasn't just greed anymore. This was personal. "I've been hunting magical creatures for 20 years, Victor snarled. "I know exactly what you are. My grandfather told me stories about the lion spirit who escaped him when he was young. He died poor because he never caught you. Your grandfather was wise to give up, Ashanti said. Magic is not meant to be caged. Maybe not, Victor said, raising his rifle higher. But it's worth more money than I can count to the right collectors. And I have a family reputation to restore. Dr. Okoye stepped forward bravely. You can't do this. This is a protected area. These are endangered species. Victor laughed coldly. Protected by who? A few park rangers? I've been avoiding them for decades. That's when Kira realized this was her first real test as a guardian. Not healing or comforting, but protecting what she loved from those who would destroy it. She closed her eyes and reached out with her new abilities, calling to every creature in the forest. Not just the ones she could see, but all of them. Elephants, buffalo, leopards, hyenas, even the tiniest birds and insects. The response shook the very ground. Thunder rolled across the clear sky as hundreds of elephants approached through the key trees. The earth trembled under their massive feet. Leopards appeared like golden shadows on the stone pillars. Hyenas laughed their wild song from the darkness between trees. The sky darkened with clouds of birds, eagles, vultures, flamingos, tiny colorful songbirds, all flying together in impossible harmony. Even insects rose from the forest floor in glittering waves. Victor's men looked around nervously as the sounds grew louder and louder. Trumpeting, roaring, chattering, buzzing, singing. The entire forest was alive with protective fury. "Boss," one of the hunters whispered, "maybe we should go." "Stand your ground," Victor shouted. "They're just animals." "No," Kira said, opening her eyes. They blazed with golden light. "They're family." The animals didn't attack. That wasn't what Kira had asked for. Instead, they simply surrounded Satwanthi, clearing in numbers too vast to count. Elephants formed a living wall. Lions prowled between the trees. Birds filled every branch. The message was crystal clear. You are outnumbered, outmatched, and unwelcome here. Victor's men started backing toward their vehicles, but their leader held his ground. His finger tightened on the trigger. "Clever trick," he said, "but I only need one shot." He aimed directly at Ashanti's heart. Kira didn't think, she just moved. Love and instinct drove her forward as the gun fired. The bullet hit her in the EBU, shoulder, spinning her around. She fell hard onto the ancient stones, blood seeping through her shirt. But something amazing happened. As Kira's blood touched the sacred ground, the earth itself responded. Thick vines burst from the soil around Victor's feet, wrapping around his legs like green ropes. Tree branches bent down to block his men's escape routes. The stone pillars themselves seemed to lean inward, as if the ancient circle was closing to protect its guardians. The land protects those who protect it, Elder Jengo said with deep satisfaction. Ashanti knelt beside Kira, pressing her hands to the bullet wound. Golden light flowed between them, and the wound healed instantly. The bullet fell out onto the stones with a small metallic clink. "You risked your life for me," Ashanti said wonderingly. "That's what family does," Kira replied, thinking of Maya. Victor struggled against the vines that held him prisoner. "This isn't over. There are others like me. They'll keep coming." "Let them come," Ashanti said, standing tall. "We'll be ready." Dr. Okoye held up his satellite phone. "Actually, I've been recording everything on a live stream to wildlife protection agencies around the world. They're already sending teams to establish permanent protection for this area." Elder Jengo smiled. "And the Maasai people will help. We have been waiting a long time for our guardians to return." The sound of helicopters filled the air. Park rangers and wildlife officers were arriving, guided by Dr. Okoye's GPS signal. As Victor and his men were led away in handcuffs, the hunter leader turned back one last time. "You think you've won?" he called out. "There are things in this world much worse than me. Ancient evils that hunt guardians like you. They'll find you eventually." "Then we'll face them together," Kira said simply. As the helicopters carried the hunters away, the forest animals began to disperse, but they didn't go far. Kira could feel them settling into new homes around the sacred clearing, a permanent protective ring around their guardians. That evening, as the sun set over their magical sanctuary, Kira sat by the golden pool with Ashanti beside her. The pride rested peacefully around them, no longer 23 lions guarding a human, but a family reunited at last. "Do you regret your choice?" Ashanti asked. Kira thought about her old life. The guilt, the emptiness, the feeling that nothing she did really mattered. Then she looked at the lions who loved her, at the sacred place she now protected, at the woman who had become her sister in magic. "Never," she said firmly. "This is exactly where I belong." Dr. Okoye approached them, his camera equipment packed away. "I'm going back to the university tomorrow to organize official protection for this site, but I'll be back. Someone needs to document what's happening here." "Just remember," Elder Jengo warned, "some magic is too precious to share with the world. Some secrets must be kept." "I understand," Dr. Okoye promised. "I'll write about unusual animal behavior and conservation. The deeper truth will remain safe." That night, as Kira fell asleep surrounded by her chosen family, she dreamed not of the past or the future, but of the present moment. She dreamed of belonging, of purpose, of love that transcended the boundaries between species. And in her dreams, Maya was there, not as guilt or sadness, but as joy and pride. "You found your way home," Maya whispered. "You found where you were always meant to be." But even in her peaceful dreams, Kira sensed something watching from the shadows beyond. The firelight. Victor's warning echoed in her mind. "There are things much worse than me." Whatever those things were, they would have to wait. Tonight, the guardians were safe. The sacred pool glowed with protective light, and magic lived freely in the heart of Africa once more. But as Kira slept peacefully surrounded by her lion family, something extraordinary happened. Her dreams became more than dreams. They became a doorway to a place between worlds. Maya stood waiting for her in a beautiful meadow filled with flowers that sparkled like stars. But this wasn't just a memory or a wish. This was real. "Kira," Maya said, her voice clear and loving, "I've been waiting for you to be strong enough for this conversation." "Maya, how is this possible?" Kira tried to run to her sister, but something invisible held her back. "The same magic that made you and Ashanti guardians also opened a bridge for me," Maya explained. "Now that you're connected to the spirit world, I can speak to you directly." Tears filled Kira's eyes. Are you okay? Are you happy?" Maya smiled the same bright smile Kira remembered from their childhood. "I'm more than okay. I'm exactly where I need to be. But you've been carrying guilt that was never yours to carry. The accident was my fault, Kira said, the old pain rising up despite everything that had happened. I was driving. I should have seen that truck running, the red light. I should have protected you. No, Maya said firmly, her voice filled with the wisdom that comes from seeing beyond life and death. It was an accident, Kira. A terrible, random accident that no one could have prevented. But if I had been more careful, then we might have died a different day, in a different way, or maybe not at all, Maya interrupted. But that's not what happened. What happened is that I got to live 16 wonderful years with the most amazing big sister in the world. Maya took a step closer, and Kira could feel the love radiating from her like warm sunlight. When my time came to leave the physical world, I left knowing I was completely loved. That's a gift not everyone gets, Kira. You gave me that gift. I miss you so much it hurts, Kira whispered. I know, and that's exactly how it should be. Missing someone means you loved them truly and deeply. But guilt isn't love, Kira. Guilt is fear, dressed up as caring. Maya's form became brighter, more solid. I need you to let go of the guilt now, not just for yourself, but for me too. Every day you spend blaming yourself is a day you're not living the beautiful life you're meant to live. How do I let go? I don't know how to stop feeling responsible. Maya reached out and placed her hand over Kira's heart. The touch was warm and real and filled with pure love. The same way you healed the lions, Maya said gently, with patience, compassion, and time. Forgive yourself the way you would forgive anyone else you love who made an honest mistake. Sayo, meadow around them began to shimmer and fade, but Maya's presence grew stronger. I have to go back now, Maya said, but I need you to know something important. The accident wasn't random, Kira. It was part of a bigger plan that we couldn't see at the time. What do you mean? If I hadn't died, you never would have come to Africa. You never would have found Sunny. You never would have become a guardian. Hundreds of animals who need healing in the future would suffer without you there to help them. Kira stared at her sister in amazement. Are you saying you died so I could save animals? I'm saying that love never dies. It just changes form, Maya said. My love for you became the force that guided you to your true purpose. Every animal you heal, every creature you protect, every moment of joy you find, that's my love living on through you. The vision began to fade completely, but Maya's voice remained crystal clear. Live, Kira. Live fully, love completely, and know that I am always with you, not as guilt or sadness, but as joy for the incredible person you've become. Kira woke, with tears streaming down her face, but for the first time since the accident, they were tears of healing rather than pain. She sat up in her sleeping area next to the sacred pool. Ashanti was sitting nearby in her human form, keeping watch over the pride. You spoke with her, Ashanti said softly. It wasn't a question. How did you know? Your heart sounds different now, lighter. The last chains of guilt have finally broken. Kira nodded, feeling the truth of those words in every part of her being. The crushing weight she had carried for so long was completely gone. Maya was at peace, and now Kira truly was too. I understand now why the spirits chose me, Kira said. Not because I was perfect, but because I was broken and learned how to heal. The best healers are always those who have needed healing themselves, Ashanti agreed. Suffering teaches compassion in ways that happiness never can. Over the following days, Kira settled into her new life completely. She and Ashanti worked together, healing injured animals from across the region. Word spread carefully among conservationists and tribal healers about the two guardians who could cure any illness and mend any broken heart. Dr. Okoye returned from the university with official documents declaring the area a protected wildlife sanctuary. He also brought news that Victor and his hunters were facing serious prison time for illegal poaching and assault. More importantly, he said, wildlife protection agencies around the world are sending teams to establish similar sanctuaries, wherever magical creatures might be hiding. Kira's parents called via satellite phone every few days. She couldn't tell them about the magic, but she shared stories about her work with conservation and animal healing. Gradually, they began to understand that their daughter had found her true calling. "You sound happy," her mother said during one call. "Really, truly happy. We haven't heard that in your voice since before." "I am happy, Mom," Kira said, watching Temba play gently with a baby elephant they had rescued the day before. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Elder Jengo visited regularly, bringing supplies and sharing ancient stories about other guardians who had once protected different parts of Africa. He also brought news that other tribes were reporting unusual animal behavior, signs that more magical creatures might be awakening. "The world is changing," he told them. "The old magic is returning, and it will need protectors like you." 3 months after her transformation, Kira stood at the edge of the golden pool at sunset. The water reflected her face, and she was amazed by what she saw. Her eyes still held flecks of gold. But more than that, they held peace, joy, purpose. "Do you ever regret your choice?" Ashanti asked, joining her by the water's edge. Kira thought about her old life, the emptiness, the guilt, the feeling that nothing she did mattered. Then she looked at the pride resting peacefully around them, at the baby animals they had healed, at the sacred place they protected. "Never," she said without hesitation. "This is my real life. Everything before was just practice for becoming who I was meant to be." That night, as she fell asleep surrounded by lions who loved her like family, Kira dreamed of the future. She saw herself healing creatures she had never imagined, protecting magical places across the world, working alongside other guardians who had answered the same ancient call. And in all those dreams, Maya was there, not as memory or loss, but as the bright spirit who had taught Kira that the greatest magic of all is love, that transforms pain into purpose, tragedy into healing, and broken hearts into instruments of hope. The pride sang their ancient song under the star-filled African sky, a lullaby of protection and belonging that echoed across the savannah. And somewhere in that wild music, if you listened very carefully, you could hear the sound of two sisters laughing together, one in the spirit world and one in the physical world, connected forever by a love that death could never touch. 1 year later, Dr. Okoye published his book, Harmony in the Wild, Unusual Animal Behavior in the African Savannah. It became a bestseller among wildlife enthusiasts and conservationists. He never mentioned the magic directly, but people who read carefully could sense that something extraordinary had happened in that remote corner of Kenya. The book led to increased funding for wildlife protection across Africa. More importantly, it brought respectful tourists who came not to stare at oddities, but to witness the incredible cooperation between humans and animals that had developed around the sacred pool. Elder Django worked with local authorities to make sure tourism remained respectful and limited. Only small groups were allowed, and they had to follow strict rules about staying quiet and keeping their distance from the guardians and their pride. Some magic is meant to be felt, not photographed, he often told visitors. The Maasai people became official protectors of the sanctuary. Young men and women from the tribe, trained as guides and park rangers, creating jobs while preserving ancient traditions. They told carefully edited versions of Ashanti's story, sharing the legend of the great healer without revealing that she still walked among them. Kira's parents finally came to visit in the spring. They flew from Oregon to Nairobi, then took a small plane to the regional airport, then drove for hours on dusty roads to reach their daughter's new home. When they first saw Kira emerge from the forest surrounded by lions, her mother gasped and grabbed her father's arm. "It's okay," Kira called to them, laughing. "They're family." Her parents could hardly believe their eyes. Their daughter looked radiant, tanned and strong, and absolutely glowing with happiness. Her eyes held flecks of gold that caught the sunlight, and when she smiled, she looked like she was lit from within. "You look like yourself again," her father said, hugging her tightly while Temba watched, tolerantly from nearby. "Maybe even better than yourself." "I am myself," Kira replied. "For the first time in my life, I'm completely myself." They stayed for a week, camping in comfortable tents that Dr. Okoye had arranged. Kira's mother was initially terrified of the lions, but by the third day, she was tentatively petting Zara, while the lioness purred like a giant house cat. "They really do love you," she marveled. "And I love them," Kira said simply. Her parents couldn't see Ashanti's true form. To them, she appeared as a local wildlife researcher who worked closely with their daughter. But they could see the deep friendship between the two women, the way they worked together, healing injured animals and protecting the sanctuary. On their last night, as they sat around a campfire with the pride sleeping peacefully nearby, Kira's mother asked the question she had been holding back all week. "Are you happy, sweetheart? Really? Truly happy?" Kira looked up at the stars, the same stars she had wished on as a child back in Oregon. She thought about Maya, not with sadness, but with gratitude for the sister who had led her to this place. She looked at the lions who were her chosen family, at the sacred pool that glowed softly in the moonlight, at the endless African sky that had become her ceiling. "I'm exactly where I'm meant to be, Mom," she said. "I'm doing exactly what I was born to do." As her parents flew back to Oregon, they carried with them hundreds of photos and an incredible story. But more importantly, they carried the peace of knowing their daughter had found her true calling. Meanwhile, Kira and Ashanti continued their work. Word spread carefully through conservation. Networks about the sanctuary where any animal could be healed. Veterinarians brought their most difficult cases. Wildlife rescue centers sent animals that no one else could save. They healed a baby rhino, whose mother had been killed by poachers. They saved a family of elephants who had been poisoned by farmers. They helped an old leopard whose arthritis had made hunting impossible. They even healed the broken wing of a secretary bird who became so attached to them that she decided to stay and help watch over the sanctuary. But their greatest success wasn't the individual animals they saved. It was the growing network of protected areas being established across Africa. Other conservationists, inspired by the unusual success of their sanctuary, worked to create safe spaces where wildlife could thrive without human interference. We're not just healing animals. Ashanti observed one evening as they watched a sunset that painted the sky gold and pink. We're healing the relationship between humans and the natural world. Maya would be proud, Kira said, and for the first time since the accident, thinking of her sister brought only joy. On the first anniversary of her transformation, Kira stood once again by the sacred pool. This time, she wasn't alone and afraid. She was surrounded by creatures who loved her, not just the original pride, but dozens of animals they had rescued and healed over the past year. Baby elephants played in the shallows of the nearby stream. Recovered leopards lounged in the trees. Healed birds filled the air with song. The sanctuary had become exactly what Ashanti had dreamed of a century ago, a place where all creatures could live in harmony. "Do you know what the greatest magic really is?" Ashanti asked, appearing beside her in human form. "What?" "It's not the power to heal bodies or speak with animals," Ashanti said, her amber eyes reflecting the pool's golden light. "It's the power to transform pain into purpose, loss into love." Kira nodded, understanding completely. "Maya taught me that. Not in words, but in the way she lived every single day of her 16 years. She squeezed joy out of every moment. Now, I'm living fully enough for both of us." As if summoned by her name, Maya's presence filled the clearing, not visible to anyone else, but absolutely real to Kira. A warm, loving energy that whispered, "I'm so proud of you, big sister." The stars shone brighter that night. The pride sang their ancient song of protection and belonging, and Kira fell asleep, knowing that she was exactly where she belonged, doing exactly what she was meant to do, surrounded by exactly the family she was meant to have. The unbelievable thing that had happened when she was surrounded by the pride wasn't just that they had protected her, or that she had discovered magic, or even that she had become a guardian herself. The truly unbelievable thing was that in saving one lost lion cub, she had found herself. In healing others, she had healed the deepest wound in her own heart. And in choosing love over fear, she had discovered that some families aren't born. They're chosen by the heart and blessed by the spirits of those who understand that true love never ends. It just finds new ways to grow. And that's how Kira learned that sometimes the most broken hearts become the strongest healers, and that love never truly dies. It just finds new ways to protect what matters most. I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from right now? Drop your city or country in the comments below. It's amazing to think that Kira's story of healing and hope is reaching people everywhere. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button. It helps spread these tales of kindness and magic to others who might need to hear them. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel, because we're building a community of people who believe in the power of love, healing, and second chances. Every subscriber helps us share more stories that inspire hope and remind us that we're all connected. Speaking of amazing stories, click on the video appearing on your screen right now. It's another incredible tale that will leave you believing in magic all over again. Until next time, remember, you never know when saving one small life might change your entire world. Keep spreading kindness.